says we're live.
Well, let me tell you what it took to get here to go live. How does it, how does it get even better than this? Well, first, we have to thank Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, because we are on the Facebook page for Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, or you guys are going to be watching this in the future. And just wanted to let you know how grateful we are for this particular specialty with Access Consciousness. And I have two of my friends here today. We couldn't bring all our friends, obviously. This group would just keep expanding to talk about horses, people, everything in between. And so here we have my friend Jose Robson. Thank you so much, Jose, for being here. And we have Enzo Lima. Enzo, thank you so much for being here. And my name is Laleh Hancock. And we have a bunch of incredible translators who are translating, and whatever craziness we're saying, they're shooting it out into the world too. So right before we went live, I was just talking about how nice it is to, one, I'm in Florida, I'm in West Palm Beach. I had a meeting like with people, like face to face, and I actually had to drive to get there. And construction and rain and wind, but it was like all these things also showing up as a reminder to us of like, hey, no matter what's going on, what are you going to be? Are you going to be present? And I think that's one of the things that the more I work with horses, they truly invite me to be present with the moment. Don't get distracted because of construction or people not doing what they're supposed to do or whatever. But that moment of you being present, and I was laughing my ass off. I'm like, what would it take to like fly there? Like, this is where I'm missing my helicopter, So Jose, Enzo, we can't all talk at once because of the translators, but go on. What about you? People, horses, everything in between.
Ok. Muitíssimo obrigado pela oportunidade. É prazer enorme estar aqui junto com vocês.
So thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
E essa classe do cavalo consciente, do cavaleiro consciente, onde a gente junta as pessoas com os cavalos, é simplesmente espetacular.
And this class, the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, where we like put people and horses together, is just phenomenal.
E isso que a Laleh acabou de trazer da presença, ela é fenomenal, porque se você se distrai, você pode levar uma dentada ou coice.
And this that Laleh mentioned about being present is so paramount, because otherwise you can get like bitten or like kicked.
e você realmente precisa estar presente, é requerido durante, e os cavalos vão te ensinar o tempo inteiro, porque às vezes você fica assim meio distraído e o cavalo olha para você e fala, ei, acorda, vambora.
And like, the horses teach you that, because sometimes you get like out in your daydreaming and they'll like, hey, we'll snap you out of it.
E é muito interessante as pessoas perceberem o quanto isso é fascinante.
And it's interesting for people to see how fascinating that is.
Uma das coisas que mais me chamou a atenção desde o início era quando o Gary Douglas, o criador do Access Consciousness, dizia, tudo que aconteceu na minha vida eu aprendi com os cavalos. E eu dizia, poxa vida, eu sou veterinário, eu tenho que aprender mais sobre os cavalos.
So one thing that was very interesting for me was when Gary Douglas, the creator of Access Consciousness, said like, everything I learned in life I learned from a horse. And then José said like, oh my God, I'm a vet, I need to learn more about that.
E isso me levou a esse lugar, né, de facilitar essa classe e de ter prazer duplo de estar junto com as pessoas e com os cavalos. Duas paixões que eu admiro, curto e amo de paixão.
So this took me to the place of like enjoying these two passions that I are like people and horses, and so I just got to enjoy that in a different way.
Laleh, me fala qual que é a sua ferramenta preferida quando você está junto com os cavalos ou quando você está dando uma classe dessa?
So Laleh, can you tell us like what's your favorite tool when you're like facilitating one of those classes or like when dealing with horses?
Wow. I don't know if I can only give you one.
More than one.
You know, um, I want to bring up this being present because, way before Access and before learning about what we can actually not just learn from horses, but what horses want to learn from us, um, is this whole concept of being present and being you. I bought a horse in 2016 after taking some conscious horse, conscious rider classes. And her name is Angel. And she had gone through some trauma where she lived in Texas. There was a tornado and picked her up from her farm and threw her in a whole different part of wherever. I don't even know where. And she found her way home. Okay. That's because she was willing to be present and follow her knowing. And when I brought her to the city and the state that I lived, it was really interesting because she would let me love her. She wanted to buy everything new, new saddle, new bridle, new everything this woman wanted, and knew I was going to get it for her. But she was very smart to know the moments I would come and see her and take care of her. If I had stuff up here, if I was thinking about work, if I was thinking about a client, I was thinking about my husband, whatever, she wouldn't move. She just would not move. She'd be like, you're not being you. You're not being present with me. I'm not going to go anywhere with you. And it really was this reminder continuously of when we're present, we can actually connect to everything. Mm-hmm. And when you're connecting, you will get downloads of different information and ideas. And so I remember one time I was thinking about a friend who was going through some difficult times. And I was looking at, hey, what are the different options she had available? And at first I was present with Angel, so she walked with me, and then she just stopped. And then I was like, oh, I'm not being present with you at all. But wow. I stopped thinking about it at all. And then like an hour and a half later, after doing a lot of work with Angel, when I was getting in my car, I got so many ideas of questions, of information that I could give to my friend. Like, it wasn't that it was just about ignoring it, but when I was focusing on it, I wasn't helping anything, and I wasn't being present for her to want to be with me. Because to a horse, when you have thoughts going in your head, it's like, what do you know? Is there a dragon that's going to come eat me?
And it's so funny that you mentioned that, Laleh, because like one of the things that most popped for me, even like being on the, because we were all in the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider Facilitator class, and that class totally shifted my life, like we talked before. And like, it's so funny because you see that horses, they don't really go through like all the bullshit that we go through. So like, oh, I need, like, for an example, I heard this from Andrew Gardella, who does SE classes and, work a lot with horses. And he said, like, once I had a horse and I was in a class and there was this lady that like tried to gift process to the horse, but she wasn't really asking the horse what it wanted. And the horse was like, what the fuck are you doing, lady? And it just like walked away, And like, how many times do we force ourselves to go through stuff that we don't really want to go through because a lot of reasons, instead of just saying, oh, this doesn't work for me, bye, and just go away, So yeah, that's very cool that you said it.
Well, sometimes we do it from fight and say bye. Mm-hmm. But how often when we procrastinate something, or if we're just doing it to have a check mark, one, we're not being present with what's required. But what if that's not what's required? How will you know? And this has been like a muscle for me. 11 years in Access, and I'm a facilitator of many things, just like you guys facilitate lots of different things. And I did a leadership with horses in Netherlands. And one thing that was really interesting is we had a lot of different people. We had a bunch of teenagers. We had people who were professional writers. We had people who were CEOs. And, you know, like we had this mix of different kinds of people in business and leadership and just living. And watching how when they put it aside that tomorrow I have to do this, like when they pushed away the to-do list, and then they were present to actually what was required, the list changed. Because it was no longer functioning from the past of something that doesn't even exist anymore, but now less effort was required because they were being present with it. And we had the beginning, you know, we went, the first thing I always do is like take the participants to go meet all the horses that are there in the stable. You know, some of them out in the field, some of them are inside. And this little girl, I don't even know, like maybe 2 years old, okay? She just walks into the stall, you know, like I'm going. And she goes there and the horse bends its front legs and its back legs and then just sat next to her. I mean, you're talking about 1,200-pound horse and this miniature kid, you know? But the horse was like, I'm here. And it was this melty. And it's like, that's what horses teach us. It's not your size. It's not your age. It's not what you learned and didn't learn. Who are you inside? Your being. And let's communicate from being to being. And we melted. Of course, it was a photograph moment, you know, lots of people taking photographs. And I saw the pictures the other day and I was like, wow, that's how we were. As kids, we knew the moments to go towards something or someone and when not to. And it was that moment, our moms being like, don't do this, don't do that, that we started to walk away from what we know innately and really trust our knowing to, am I doing it right? Am I going to the right person? Instead of, wow, that horse showed me, be you and come play. It was just so beautiful. I had to share.
Totally. And that goes with the thing of also like we get out of being aware into being careful because of our moms and what we learn, you know? And nature doesn't function from like care, like being careful. It functions from being aware, you know? That's the cool thing. You know, the kid was being aware. She wasn't being careful. That's why she
Yeah.
created such a cool thing, you know?
Yeah.
That's
Eu
beautiful.
gostaria de compartilhar com vocês também uma história que eu acho que é muito linda.
José would also like to share a story that he finds beautiful.
É de uma pessoa, tanto pode ser um CEO, um grande gerente ou um grande empresário, mas também pode ser uma pessoa comum.
And it can be about like a CEO, a big company person, or a normal person.
Quando eles entram na arena, junto com os cavalos, vão fazer alguns exercícios, por exemplo, de movê-los para a direita ou para a esquerda, porque às vezes a gente percebe é que a pessoa vai com muita força e, de repente, a energia que é requerida ali é de gentileza.
When they get in like a round bend with the horses and they're directing them to go like clockwise or counterclockwise, and they apply force instead of being gentle.
E aí a pessoa se dá conta que, de repente, ela está... vamos! E, de
And the
repente...
person sometimes realizes that they're like applying force and being like violent.
E, de repente, a pessoa se percebe que, de repente, muito mais vale o desejo e a intenção do que a força. E muitas vezes a gente perde essa mão. E os cavalos, na hora, nos mostram, né?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes what's more required, it's like the gentleness and the ask and the intent instead of like the force. And the horses perceive that immediately.
A outra coisa que eu percebo com muita frequência nessas classes é que, às vezes, a pessoa que vem fazer a classe conosco, ela está mais conectada com a pessoa que está fora, com os aplausos e com o reconhecimento, do que com ela mesma.
And sometimes what I get is like, sometimes the person that's in a round pen, they're more connected to the people who are outside of it, like to get recognized and acknowledged instead of just being present with the experience.
E isso é muito
Yeah.
bonito de ver, porque, de repente, a pessoa está mais interessada no reconhecimento ou no não julgamento do que em ser. E quando ela percebe que ela não está sendo, ela está performando, faz total diferença na vida dela.
Wow. And it's cool because like when the person realizes that they are yearning for acknowledgement and attention instead of being present and just being, they realize that including in their life they've been like performing and not being, and that can change their whole lives.
E muitas vezes a gente vai para a vida com essa percepção, né? Ah, eu vou lá, vou arrasar, eu vou lacrar, eu vou conseguir tudo, absolutamente tudo aquilo que eu desejo. Mas, de repente, será que essa energia que é requerida, esse realmente é o seu desejo mais profundo? E aí as coisas não batem, e os cavalos captam na hora e falam, ô, acorda!
So sometimes we get all like peacocky and like, oh, I'm gonna go and do that and blah blah blah, but we're not being present, and the horses perceive that in a dime.
E é muito divertido perceber isso, né? Porque esses distratores estão a toda hora, né? Você está aqui intencionado em fazer algo, vou fazer e acontecer, estou aqui presente, mas passa aqui um pássaro, passa alguma coisa, e eu me distraio. E, de repente, como que a gente pode permanecer presente? E esse é o grande presente, talvez, que os cavalos trazem para a gente. Olha, fica presente, toca naquilo que é importante.
Deixa eu te traduzir, calma.
Me empolguei.
So like what he was saying is like we get distractions all around. So maybe you're like present and you see like a bird or like a shiny object, and then you lose presence. And this is a cool gift about the horses. They pull you back to presence.
E essa questão de, primeiro, eu coloco os meus desejos e as minhas intenções na minha cabeça. E depois eu vou para os cavalos. Porque, às vezes, a gente faz o inverso, né? Nós deixamos que os outros escolham para a gente e a gente segue. E onde é que a gente está sendo nessa história toda?
So, like, for him is a lot about getting your intent and your ask clear with yourself and then go into the horses. Because how many times do we let ourselves be led by what people want and their desires and their needs?
Do outro lado, eu posso colocar-me também nessa posição. Ok, eu vou simplesmente curtir, eu vou aproveitar. Entretanto, se eu estiver presente, eu vou perceber as mudanças de energia e eu vou me adaptando. Mas se eu entrar numa daqui do Zeca Pagodinho, deixa a vida me levar, eu vou cair literalmente do cavalo.
So, he said, like, if you get into the situation like enjoying it, you can get and you can be way more present than if you're like, there's this musician in Brazil that's called Zeca Pagodinho, and he sings a song about like letting life lead you and letting life take you wherever. But it's not about that. It's about being present and you leading and directing things.
E esse presente, esse convite que os cavalos trazem para essas reflexões são muito gentis e é quase impossível a gente não perceber, porque quando a gente não percebe, eles insistem até a gente perceber para eles poderem mudar de atitude.
And this invitation that the horses are so cool because it's so gentle and they like tug you and they nudge you back into presence until you being present gets them to change their behavior or whatever they're doing.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that's so interesting is it doesn't mean the horse is always present either.
I was going to translate it to Portuguese for a moment. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Translation gear is on.
We do have Sylvia who's translating for Portuguese. Yeah.
I know.
She's over there.
A Silvia.
You know, one thing that was really interesting is how much of leadership, you know, you being the leader of your life, or do you allow everything around you to distract you? When I brought Angel to the farm that I was at, there was 100 horses there. It was a huge place. And many would come after, you know, at their retirement and then until they passed away. And one thing was, as soon as she came, the place woke up. It was like, boom, like the leadership changed, the gilding, which is the male version with no special package anymore. He came to her rescue when they brought her in. And so he became the alpha horse of that field. And then she became the alpha mare, which is the female version. And it was really interesting because whenever I would take her out, it was like she wanted to spend all her time focused on where's the herd. She had to take care of everybody, you know? But it was also showing horses when they're with you, they're working. They have to be present with you. They have to do what you ask them to do, but not because you tell them, but you are willing to be the leader and you're creating this communion with them, you know? So they trust you. They want to work with you. And that's the other thing, because, you know, when I first bought the horse, I was so excited. Oh my God, I never even thought about a horse before Access. And I could tell at the beginning, she was totally walking all over me. Like, you know, everything she wanted. Next thing I knew, like a $3,000 saddle that's made of pure leather never breaks. It broke when a trainer was working with her. I was like, how does this happen? Oh, she wanted a different one. It was interesting. By the way, horses do put stuff in your head, just so you know, because they do talk telepathically and they will tell you, buy me, but they won't say buy me. They say, oh, I want to buy this horse because I had that. One time I went riding in Costa Rica and the whole ride I was like, I have to buy this horse when I get off this horse. I have to buy this horse when I get off this horse. Oh. And I went and I saw Susie Gotzi, who is our creative producer for, you know, the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider. She's a horse whisperer. And I was like, Susie, do you think the farmer will sell me this horse that I rode today? And she starts laughing her ass off. She's like, why do you want to buy a horse? I'm like, the whole ride, I just kept getting, I have to buy this horse when I get off this ride. And she goes, Laleh, who does that belong to? And I was like, wow. What do you mean? What do you mean? She's like, ask a question. Did that belong to you, someone else, or something else? And I was like, wow, they put stuff in your head? How's that possible? Yeah, they can. But you got to outsmart them. Stay present and aware, and it cannot happen. Oh my goodness.
That's so cool. It sounds like dealing with kids. So maybe horse classes can teach you how to be different with your kids.
Well, I don't think just children. Considering I have children and I work with people and I have clients and stuff. So I think this can apply to all parts of your life, including your lovers.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh.
Tell me more about it, Laleh, please.
Well, that might have to be a home play that you all explore. What could that be? Or maybe try a Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class and see what that is for you. But that's the beauty, I think, that horses really gift us. When you're being present, you're also more aware of what someone requires, you know, not just in the office, but also in the bedroom or in a conversation with your children. You know, I think so often we've learned what we think is the right answer is what we want to throw out into the world, you know? Everyone has to do it this way. But when you're being present, you're asking, what does this person require? You know, you're gonna start to receive more awareness, more information of what does this person require, not what you think they require. And what if you could add some of that flavor into the bedroom as well? Just saying, it's a possibility.
Uau! Sabe uma outra coisa que também que me chama muita atenção nessa questão dos cavalos, questão da comunhão, da gente estar presente, é que desperta na gente também uma gratitude pela terra incrível, né?
One other thing that draws me a lot to this subject of horses and animals is like the gratitude that we can have with the earth.
E à medida que você está ali presente e você vai trazendo as ferramentas maravilhosas do Access, aquilo faz um sentido tão grande e a gente fica completamente absorvido por aquela gratidão aos criadores do Access, aos cavalos, à terra, à vida. Isso é muito bonito.
So when you're present and you start using those tools and engaging in that way, you start to be grateful for like the creators of Access and of those tools and for the earth and for the animals and for life itself.
E essa sensação de plenitude nos faz refletir que, de repente, o que nós requeremos para sermos realmente felizes e plenos não é tanto assim, né? De repente, é mais loucura da nossa cabeça.
And this makes us realize how this like sense of wholeness that we've been like looking for and yearning maybe takes way less than we think it takes.
E essa questão de você perceber que menos é mais, e que quando você tem isso, já deu, você não tem que ficar procurando fora, é como se a gente passasse a vida buscando fora e não olhando para dentro, né? E acho que esse é o grande convite dos cavalos.
And it's like that saying like less is more. Sometimes we spend our whole lives looking for something outside of us, but then we realize it's inside.
Eu percebo em mim mesmo, quando eu estou dentro do curral ou na arena, junto com os cavalos, eu percebo que os meus desejos, os meus requerimentos, as minhas demandas para o universo, além de serem mais reais, elas são mais simples, mais factíveis, sem tanto espalhafato, sabe? Sem tanto glamour, que às vezes a gente pinta uma coisa que não é.
So sometimes when I'm in a stable or in the round pen with the horses, I start realizing like perde só a parte do meio, deu uma congelada aqui.
É que assim, quando você está dentro do curral e está percebendo todas essas questões, você faz demandas ou desejos ou ações, ou você faz escolhas que são mais reais e conectadas com você, e não com o exterior, com aquele glamour, com aquela fantasia, com aquele embrulho.
So when you're there with the horses, you get more like congruent with your asks and your demands instead of like basing yourself on the outside world to ask for something or to choose.
Eu acredito, inclusive, que isso muito facilita a nossa conversa com os nossos corpos, que a gente começa a conversar com os corpos dos cavalos, com os corpos das pessoas que estão na classe e que estão na volta. E esse silêncio e essa presença é quase como um estado meditativo. Você entra numa dança. Isso é muito legal.
And I think that like when you're talking to the horses' bodies and to people's bodies, it makes it like a dance. It facilitates it like a dance.
E eu me divirto muito quando eu vejo os participantes fazendo perguntas ou tocando nos cavalos, porque às vezes o que eles desejam no fundo não é real, e os cavalos evidenciam isso. Então fica uma coisa tão fácil, tão transparente, né? Que não tem tanta facilitação, porque é tudo tão evidente.
And I have a lot of fun because like sometimes people are asking for stuff that is not real, and that gets like transparent with the horses. So sometimes there's not as much as like verbal facilitation. It's just like there, transparent.
E às vezes você volta para o cliente e fala, olha lá o que o cavalo está te falando. Percebe o que aconteceu e a pessoa, não, porque de repente ela está tão dentro do mundinho dela que ela não consegue perceber. Se de repente a gente volta isso numa câmera lenta, por exemplo, as fichas começam a cair. Eu acho que isso traz tanta consciência que é uma coisa impressionante.
And so sometimes something shows up with the horses and the person can't even see it because they're like so focused in their own world. But if you go back and like and slowly play it again, it can show you a different way.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting. Sometimes horses also create situations to wake you up, to give you information. We were at the founder of Access Consciousness and Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider. His name is Gary Douglas. And he's been his own horse whisperer since he was like in his 20s or younger. And so that's over 50 years. You know, he's been working and learning from horses. And they have this beautiful ranch in Houston, which is where our training was. And when we were going to do the, it's called the SC with horses. So it's really actually doing energetic body work with the horses to be able to work with the fascia and really remove trauma or anything else that's not allowing their bodies to be what it needs to be. And that day, two horses were fighting. One of them was the alpha of his field. And he hit his front leg or back, I think his back leg, against the fence and cut through the muscle, actually.
Wow.
And what was interesting is we all went there as, you know, facilitators, practitioners, to go help him, you know, to see what can we do with his body to assist his body to heal faster. And at first when we came, he wouldn't even let us touch him because it wasn't about us going to fix him. He invited us to come because he wanted to gift us information. So when we started asking questions, we're like, it's really weird. He won't really let us touch. Maybe we need to do more things off the body. And one of the questions was, what information is he trying to gift us? And it was that he knows a lot about the earth, but he wants to give that information to others. As soon as we got that question, got that awareness of it, he relaxed because now he was communicating and we were listening. And then he would allow us to come to him, and then we could actually start working on his physical body, his energetic body. And it was really interesting because I ended up staying there longer after trainings and was working on him every day. And you could tell he was in a lot of pain, but it was like, it was worth it. Like, it was like he'd created that situation to come into our class because he wasn't going to be one of the horses that we were going to work on. And the amount of awareness and information each of us got, the information about the earth, so many things, was just miraculous. But if someone from the outside would have looked at it and said, aggressive horses, they were fighting and they got injured. So we would miss out on a whole universe of what these horses wanted to give us information about. The horse eventually ended up, you know, being put to sleep. His muscle wasn't reattaching. But what was interesting is, as sad as we were about that situation, we also knew animals think about death differently. And it gave me such a different relaxation of, why do we make death so serious as well? Like, instead of like honoring the person, honoring the animal, being grateful for everything you've experienced. And maybe that wasn't really the outcome we really wanted, but what's going to be the best for the animal? And that animal was struggling. It wasn't healing. It was laying there. Horses don't want to just sit and lay. Becoming lame, that causes all sorts of health problems. And so it also is our willingness to look at what's required here. So I'm wondering, it could be an animal, it could be your dog, it could be your cat. I have a bunny, you know, she tells me information all the time. Like, what if it's not that they're bad, they're biting? What's the root of that? What are they giving you information about to what's causing the biting or the situation you're calling a problem. And I think that's one of the things with the more classes I attend as a facilitator, but also as a participant, because I take lots of conscious horse classes with others, opening my own universe of this communication that is so different than the words we're used to hearing, but really the energy of it. So I'm wondering, like, what is truly possible with this gifting and receiving between us and animals we just never considered before.
Totally. And if people want to find out more about Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider classes, where can they find more about it?
Actually, in the Facebook, I put in there accessconsciousness.com/conscious horse, conscious rider. There's a link that you can get there. I also put a link to my website where people can find things on our website too. And Jose, do you have a specific link that you'd like people to go to for your classes coming up?
And the Facebook, not yet, but I would like to invite people to stay with me in the beginning of the May in Rio de Janeiro. I will do my first class. Yes. Yeah, it's so wonderful.
Go Rio. How did Rio get so lucky?
Yeah. Woo.
Well, it's funny. You'll be in Rio and I'm going to be in Dubai doing a Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class. And it's funny because there's so many camels that I think this year I'm also going to do a Conscious Camel, Conscious Rider class.
It's so wonderful. It's so funny too.
But they're amazing. They're amazing. And it's just something I never thought about. But being in Dubai, you have to think about it, you know? And also, we invite you guys to come to São Paulo and outside of São Paulo. Where's it called, Enzo?
São José dos Campos in the end of July.
That's
so wonderful.
Yeah, we're gonna have an adventure. We're gonna have a bar swap in São Paulo. We're gonna have 2 days of Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, and we're gonna have an intro to X-Men, which is I'm so grateful to be facilitating. It really is. Yeah, all the things that you think are wrong about you are actually your gifts. So what if it's now time to use our superpowers to our advantage? So thank you guys for being here today. All of you watching now and watching later, and these two amazing gentlemen, Enzo and Jose, thank you so much, guys. So grateful for you. And if you haven't considered Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, just explore it. There are facilitators all around the world. You are watching right now either on a future place of this video or also Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider on Facebook. We have a Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider Instagram. You can follow us there. There are just so many beautiful tools and just funny videos. I love sharing funny videos with horses. You know, just to start to see like, I never considered that with a horse. So what else is really possible we haven't considered? And we want to thank the incredible translators here. Yay, translators.
Big clap.
Yeah.
And the clap for Enzo as well for translating Jose.
I didn't even know I was translating. It was like just an impromptu translation. So that was cool.
Thank you so much.
And you guys can always message us if you have any other questions. So thank you, everyone, and hope you have a
bye.
Merci.
merci.